You know the vibes. Welcome back to another episode of the Hoop Genius podcast brought to you by NBA 2K25. It is myself, Mo Mooncey, alongside me as always, the three-time NBA champion, Mr. BJ Armstrong, and general manager extraordinaire, Mr. Scott Perry. Fellas, how was your weekend?
Good weekend, Mo. Really good weekend. Got a chance to play a little golf with some friends that came down from Detroit I hadn't seen in a long time. So good weekend for me, man. And also got a chance to watch a little basketball.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So
What about you, BJ?
Yeah. Only terrific, Mo. I only have terrific days, so
Absolutely.
it was good. Only terrific, and I couldn't think of a better place to be than right here with you guys talking a little basketball. So,
Absolutely. Well, it was not a terrific weekend for the New York Knicks, who suffered a huge loss to the Cleveland Cavaliers, followed by a double-digit loss to the Boston Celtics. The New York Knicks came into this season with their new starting five. A lot of people called it the best starting five in basketball, and they have been good. However, they are 0-7 versus the Thunder, Celtics, and Cavs. So they've been good, except for when they face the elite teams in the league. And it's not even a super elite. They're 26-6 against teams with losing records, and they're 11-14 against teams with winning records. They're now down to 20th in defensive rating, which is extremely rare for a Tom Thibodeau team. How are you guys looking at the New York Knicks? Scott, let's start with you. Do you see them as legit contenders in the Eastern Conference here? Or have they gone and spent all their first round picks for Mikal Bridges and given OG a huge contract and traded for Karl-Anthony Towns just for a second round exit?
guys, here's what I see with the Knicks. And this was my concern going into the year. And people haven't talked loudly about this. Their best two players, and they're outstanding players. I like them both, Cat and Jalen Brunson. They are excellent offensive players, and that's why they're one of the top offensive teams in the league. However, the game is played on both sides of the ball. And unfortunately for the Knicks, and as I size it up, when you look at Cat, he's probably a bottom five defender at his position, and he's protecting the rim for you right now. You look at Jalen Brunson, probably another bottom five defender at his position, at the point guard position. So BJ knows this. If your point of the attack defensively, meaning your point guard position, is one of your weaker spots on your defensive personnel grouping, and you have a bottom five guy protecting the rim, it's going to be difficult to beat the very good teams in this league. And that's what I think you see when they're playing these good teams. They're constantly trying to exploit and go at whether it be Jalen Brunson, Karl-Anthony Towns, or both guys. And so what that does for defenders like Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, Josh Hart in that starting group, they're constantly having to help those guys in a defensive situation. They're putting them in screening roles all the time. You got Cat in drop coverage a lot, which he struggles with. And so that's what's manifesting itself with the Knicks right now. So what it puts pressure on the team and as a group to play exceptional offensively every single night. And I don't know and I shouldn't say I don't know. I strongly believe that's not a recipe to win 4 7-game series. When you're talking about winning the championship, where you have to rely on your offense being exceptional every single night to win. Now, there are going to be some games and nights that they are, and they can overcome those shortcomings defensively and win a few games. But against the good teams, when you get locked in a 7-game series, everybody knows what everyone's doing. You're going to need consistent defensive presence. Now, the light at the end of the tunnel, maybe for the Knicks, is the return of Mitchell Robinson, who can help shore up that backline defense and who could quarterback that. The only issue there is Mitchell hasn't played in basically a year now. So how long is that going to take him to get his timing back and get connected with the other guys on the floor? For them, hopefully he can stay healthy. Once he comes back, he can stay healthy for the remainder of the regular season and have some timing and rhythm going into the playoffs. If that's the case, then that can change the narrative a little bit for this Knicks team. And now they'll have a better chance at competing against the upper echelon teams, not only in the Eastern Conference, but as they were fortunate enough to make the finals. But as we sit here today, there's a clear delineation from my standpoint. You have the Cavaliers and the Celtics clearly are the top of the Eastern Conference, and then you got to drop down a tier 2 to get to the Knicks and a few other ball clubs in the Eastern Conference.
The Celtics have beaten the Knicks by a combined 63 points. And even the game yesterday, they were up double digits, another 20-point lead. The Knicks had a strong third quarter, but that just wasn't enough. When you're talking about that drop coverage on defense, it's not just Karl-Anthony Towns. They have it when Jericho Sims in the game as well. The Celtics were getting 1.34 points per possession on that Knicks drop coverage. So it's basically every other possession down, they're hitting a three. It's not a good way to guard the Boston Celtics. But on the other end, the pick and pop with Karl-Anthony Towns trying to get off those 3-pointers, when you're up against a team like OKC or Boston who are happy to switch because they've got defenders that they're comfortable living with guarding either Brunson or Towns, that really stagnates the offense. You saw Towns really struggle. He couldn't get a shot off in like the first quarter. Didn't really score until, I don't even know when he scored his first bucket in that game. BJ, schematically, Scott talks about Mitchell Robinson. Mitchell's played 31 games in the last 2 seasons. So last season and this season combined, he's played 31 games. If you do bring Mitchell back, are you sliding Karl-Anthony Towns to the 4? You then lose a wing defender. So when you're playing against a team like the Celtics, the question is, who's guarding Jason Tatum and who's Karl-Anthony Towns going to be on? Who's Mitchell Robinson going to be on? If you're playing against a team that's running a one big lineup, you've then got 2 bigs and one of them has to guard out on the perimeter. And I don't see either of those guys being strong perimeter defenders. What's the solution here for the New York Knicks?
I think Scott nailed it with this explanation of what's going on there in New York. When you start talking about inserting people into the lineup, well, my question is, who are you going to take to the bench? All right, you got Jason Hart, Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, Towns, Brunson. Okay, we obviously know Brunson and Towns aren't going to go to the bench. So I think that would be very disruptive to their team. And now you're looking for this one player to shore up the entire defensive component of your team. What does that really say? This right now we can see it is what it is with this Knicks team, right? They clearly have the philosophy, and who was it? Was that the great Will Robinson say, "Hey, it's still a game, Scotty"? What's the quote? Scotty?
He's the great Will Robinson would say, "You see that score clock on the wall over there or up above?" He said, "There's a reason why that's there. You got to score more points than the other team." Okay. That's what Will would tell you.
The coaches up there, Coach Thibodeau coach team, which traditionally has been a defensive team, they've taken on a new identity. Now they are an offensive team. However, the Celtics, they're pretty good on the offensive end as well. So against the better teams, it really shows itself. This part of the Knicks team really shows itself. They can't compete and outscore the Celtics, the Cavaliers, and those teams. Now, as every game I watch the Celtics, I just look at one thing. I just look at the minutes. I look at the minutes of, those guys are playing an excessive amount of minutes.
Not the Celtics,
Knicks,
right?
Yeah. Yes, sorry, the Knicks. I look at that with the Knicks and I go, these guys are, 2, 3, 4, some nights 5 guys. Over
40 minutes for Josh Hart, 35 minutes for OG. I think it was the second game coming back off injury. 41 minutes for Karl-Anthony Towns, 27 minutes for Bridges, 37 minutes for Brunson. And then you had 4 players coming off the bench. McBride got 27 minutes. Precious got 14 minutes. Cameron Payne played 10 minutes and Landry Shamet got 5.
So that's what I look for with the Knicks. That's not sustainable. It's just not sustainable. I get it. Your job is to win games. You can argue, well, I'm going to play my best players. Okay, that's fine. I don't know what to do about that. And as you continue to get later and later into the season, guys get more and more fatigue, and then you start getting efforts like this. So we'll continue to watch it. I think we all said it. Scott said it, someone said it here, where, you're going to have to build a team. And here's our GM here who's politely saying that right now. You have to have a roster, in my opinion, of about 10 guys who can play in today's game, the way they play. That's just what it is. And we like the players on the team. We like they compete. We like all of those things. However, if you're on a championship run, you're going to need efforts, multiple efforts from different guys. And right now, this team has only shown that their first five is capable of playing at that level. And that's a major problem.
I echo that wholeheartedly. You know that, especially my days in Detroit, and obviously wherever I've been, I've always, Orlando, New York, whatever, I've always talked about the importance of having depth. Because if you're going to be a great team in this league, and I get it, I understand that your high end, your star players carry a big time load and extremely important. But as BJ knows, when you get locked in a 7-game series, your star guys aren't going to always have a great game. They may have an off night. And that off night, you're going to need a player, 2 players, or even 3 players to be able to come off that bench and provide you effort, energy, and production to get one of those wins. So you're first to 4 in that 7-game series. And you're going to need that each round you advance, including the championship round. So that's extremely important. So that's where the vision comes in throughout the regular season. When you're working with a team, when you're either building a team or you're coaching a team, you got to be, it's important that you're winning throughout the regular season so you can have a good seed and all that so that you're in the playoffs. But also you got to have some forward-thinking vision in terms of, okay, what are we going to be faced with in the playoffs? So it's up to me to start really developing the depth of my bench and getting them quality minutes so there's no hesitation come playoff time to go to some of those guys when you're going to need efforts to be able to beat the better teams in the league.
Absolutely. Well, a team who looks like they are figuring things out is the Los Angeles Lakers, who, in a shocking turn of events, have gone from one of the worst transition defenses in the league to one of the better transition defenses in the league. And that was on full display as they took down the Denver Nuggets 123-100 over the weekend. Luka Doncic had his kind of breakout game with the Lakers. He finished with, 32 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists, and 4 steals and a block. He's got a point to prove on that defensive end after the Mavericks traded him away. I have a few questions for you guys about this game. My first question is, how much should we read into this game? Because I was with some friends, we watched the game on the weekend, and they were like, "Oh, Jokic didn't have a great game, but Doncic did," and they were like, "Why do you think that is?" And I was like, "Well, a possible reason for this might be that these two guys, they're best friends in the league, right? They love hanging out with each other. So the night before the game, they probably went out together. They went out for dinner. Their families went out for dinner, maybe, and maybe they had a few drinks afterwards, and then they had a game to play the next day, and maybe Jokic being 30-year-old and Doncic being 24-year-old is easier when you're 24 to play with a hangover than it is when you're 30 years old. So that could have possibly been a reason. So I don't know how much we can read into this. I don't know if that's really what happened, but from the outset, as I look at it and I know a little bit about how these guys spend their time on days off, that could be one potential reason. But I wanted to talk about this game because the Lakers came in, and credit to JJ Redick, he came in with a great game plan for this game. And it's something that's so kind of obvious, but we don't really see a lot of teams doing, right? They put a forward on Nikola Jokic, and then they had their big Jackson Hayes or whoever was playing at the 5, playing in kind of a weak side help position. And Rui Hachimura and Jared Vanderbilt in particular did a great job of being physical. Like Jared Vanderbilt was picking up Jokic down near full court and really just harassing him the whole way down the court and, bumping into him and whatnot. And Jokic isn't going to get those calls because he's much bigger than him. They were being super physical with him. And then every time Jokic got down low onto the block in the post, they would front him to try and deny the entry pass and have that weak side help defender almost prepared to double team him as soon as he gets the catch. There were times in that game where Jokic was being double teamed off the ball. There were times in that game where Jokic was being triple teamed off the ball. and the Lakers were perfectly happy to sag off Aaron Gordon and Russell Westbrook and let them shoot the three, and just really try and frustrate Nikola Jokic and not give him as much time on the ball to get it and not give him easy catches. The Lakers completely dominated in transition, as I mentioned before. I think they were 39-11 in fast break points. So it was a great game plan for the Lakers, right? But we know over the past few years, the Nuggets have had the Lakers number when it comes to the playoffs, and they've just got them out of here every single time. Have the Lakers figured something out, or have they shown their hand too early? Is this a game plan that you would have potentially waited to see them in the playoffs go up against, rather than showing how you want to guard them now? And now, if they do meet in the playoffs, the Nuggets have a ton of film that they're going to be able to make adjustments to, and Jokic is going to know what they're planning to do to make adjustments with.
Good question, Mo. But this Lakers team, is this the first time they've beaten Denver in what, 2-3 years, including playoffs? I don't know what the record is, but they haven't had much success against them. So
yeah, the Nuggets have won their last 5 matchups in the regular season coming into this one.
Okay, it was the last 5, and then
in the playoffs, the Nuggets won 4-1 last year, and the year before
they've
won
only
so they've won one game in 2 years, and then they won
and one game in 2 years. So from a confidence standpoint, if you're the Lakers, you need to come back in that locker room, even though it's the regular season, in my opinion, having beaten this team at least once during the regular season. So the guys know that this has been our nemesis the past 2 years. We can get over the hump. Now, look, the league is always about adjustments. So next time that they play here in the regular season, I believe another time, we will see what adjustments Denver makes on that. And it'll be a back and forth. But just from a psyche and a confidence standpoint, that's got to be good for them. It's good for Luka and LeBron to be able to go on the road and lead the team the way they did. They were able to play with some pace, like you said, and they also tried to make everybody else beat them because they did a pretty good job of taking Nikola Jokic away. So, again, it's one game, though, so I'm not going to put the Lakers in the championship round, but I believe it's a definite step in the direction, and it allows the coach, J.J. Redick, and his players to be able to look at the film the next day and say, this is what we're capable of. Now the key is how consistent can we be in this area defensively, and how consistent can we continue to execute on the offensive end, so this becomes a pattern and we can advance and make a deep run in the playoffs. That's what I think that they're going to use that win from. It's not like, okay, they've arrived. It's still a work in progress if you're the Los Angeles Lakers, but it's it was an encouraging Saturday night for them just the same.
What do you think, BJ?
Well, anytime you get a good win on the road versus a quality team like the Denver Nuggets, I'll take it. So I'm not going to read too much into it. We've seen the formula that can possibly work against a player like Jokic. You have to double him with the big. So I don't think it was anything extraordinary that I'm looking at going wow, or or something I haven't seen before. However, I think it is a confidence booster for this Laker team, for them to know that they have the capability to put together a game plan. I think it's a confidence thing with their coaches and their players. And you can see this is one of those games that brings about camaraderie within the group, right? You make a change, you do something out of the box, and it works. And then suddenly everyone has confidence. You have confidence in the coach's game plan. You have confidence in the player's ability to execute the game plan. But here's the thing I think was important, more important for the Lakers than the Denver Nuggets. The Lakers right now, they made obviously a huge trade during the middle of the season. And now this gives them an opportunity to bring about camaraderie or confidence internally within the group in the locker room. Okay. The hardest thing that we know in sports, especially in team sports, is when you have a unified thought that's in the locker room. This type of game has the capability, has the potential, we'll see how it plays out, to bring about this group where they're locked in as one in their thoughts. And I like it. You can see right now, we can't forget this. JJ is still a first-year head coach. he's trying to integrate, a star in Luka Doncic. You have LeBron James is, well in his, 40, what is he, 41, 42 now, somewhere around there. So this is a big win for them, but I'm not going to read too much into it because let me assure you, Jokic has a triple double and we're saying he has an off game. That's how good now we've come. Okay. Your center has a triple double and we're like, oh, they were a little off tonight. So I'm not going to read much into it. As we all know, when you are a great player, you never have two bad games. And if my best player has a bad game and a triple double, I feel pretty good about game 2 if this was a playoff series. So I'm not worried about it. But great win for the Lakers on the road. A lot of confidence they should gain from this game. However, we'll see. I want to see if Luka. Remember, guys, Luka. I think he took the game off the game before, if I remember correctly. So let's see if he's able to round into shape. Let's see what he's able to do. And the key word is consistent. How consistent can they play at this level? Is this just a one every 2 or 3 games or one every 4 games? It's taking Luka, about 5 games now before he's, and then we're talking about a player who's been, for the last 5 years, first team All NBA. Okay, so clearly he's not into his rhythm. He's still adjusting, but this was a pretty good indicator where you can have a player like Luka kind of integrate himself, have a big game on the road, and LeBron plays well, and the whole team play well, actually. So it was a good win for him.
Yeah, the Lakers are 8-2 in their last 10. They're up to 4th in the West now, just 2 games behind the 2nd seed, which is pretty impressive. The Nuggets are 9-1 in their last 10, and they're tied with the Grizzlies for the 2nd seed. The Rockets have been on a bit of a slide, 3-7 over the last 10. They're down to 5th now. But the other team I wanted to talk about today was the Golden State Warriors with Jimmy Butler. Did you guys see them playing the Mavericks last night?
I had an opportunity to watch just a little bit of it, Mo. And hey, you got to give credit to Jimmy Butler and what he's meant to this basketball team, man, since he's been there. And you figured that he would be motivated, obviously, to be at his best, with how the whole trade situation went down with Miami, how that whole exit went. Jimmy's been around long enough and he knows how he needs to respond coming out of those situations like that. So he has responded really well. And what it appears to be, you listen to Draymond Green over the All-Star break in terms of the respect that he's had for Jimmy and talked about his willingness to follow him and what he's meant. And Draymond has gone as far as saying, hey, they were going to win the championship. So they obviously, as an organization, like what they're seeing thus far with the addition of Jimmy Butler, how that's helped free up Steph Curry. So they have the potential to be a dangerous basketball team.
Since trading for Jimmy Butler, the Warriors are 5-1. They're 2nd in the NBA in offensive rating and 2nd in the NBA in defensive rating. 1st in net rating in these games. They've been really impressive. I think having Jimmy Butler there as a secondary ball handler to kind of take some of the pressure off of Stephen Curry. And then also you don't have to worry about the team falling behind when Jimmy Butler, when Steph Curry goes to the bench, because you can play Jimmy with some of those second units. BJ, do you think this Warriors team is capable of winning a championship this season?
If you're asking me to compare the teams, I don't think they are better than the current teams above them. I don't think they're better than OKC. I don't think they're better than Denver. The Houston Rockets have been struggling a little bit as of late. I don't think they're better than them. But you like what you see from the Warriors. And when you make a trade, a lot of times you will get the best version of that player. Right now, the Golden State Warriors are getting the best version of Jimmy Butler. This is the Jimmy Butler that we've kind of, when we saw them get to the NBA Finals in the bubble, this is the version that they're currently getting in the last, 6 games? They're 5-1. Now let's see how sustainable this is. Let's see how this works. Okay. Now, if it's one thing that I've been following with the Warriors, is the following: Jimmy Butler has been playing a lot, as he should. But you know what I really like about the Golden State Warriors right now? I want to make this point. Jimmy Butler is playing right now with a great sense of desperation right now. He's really, really giving maximum effort. Now, you got to love it. They've turned the corner. I think when I say turn the corner, they feel now that every game they enter into that they can win the game. They haven't had that probably since Jimmy Butler has arrived here. 6 games ago. So I like it. I like where they're at. You got to like the fact that they're playing with this sense of desperation, which is absolutely necessary in this league if you're going to win. However, when the Dallas Mavericks, for instance, when they're fully healthy, I don't think they're better than the Dallas Mavericks. Okay. I don't think they're better than a lot of teams ahead of them. But I like the fact that they are playing with confidence. Jimmy has given them some energy, and you got to ride it. You take it because it looked like they were playing in mud before he arrived. So give them credit on that. I don't know what this means to the bench. They're not going to their bench as much. They're kind of top heavy right now in how they've been playing since Jimmy arrived. But you got to give them credit. They've won. It seems to have worked for them, and I think it was Steph Curry. I just saw a quote. This is it. This is their last run. If this doesn't work, I think it's
right. Mm-hmm.
So I got to give them credit, and they've all taken on that responsibility, and that's what I love. I love it when people just lay it out and give me your effort. So I respect that because if this one doesn't work, now what? And this is their final run.
Jimmy has added a certain physical presence on that perimeter too that's needed. Draymond obviously has done that for years for this team. They had it when Clay was there as a defender on the perimeter, but Jimmy brings some of that physical and nasty attitude on the perimeter that's very much needed when you start competing in this league, especially against the better teams. And he also gives them someone who can get to the free throw line.
Yeah, they're first in the league.
Yes, and he's been great at that, especially since getting there. And that is also a very good weapon for that Golden State team. His ability to draw fouls, get to the line, and get extra points that way for that team.
Yeah, the Warriors were minus 90 in the non-Steph Curry minutes before they made this trade. Since Jimmy Butler, they're plus 30 in the non-Steph Curry minutes. So it's given them a second star that they have to, really carry the rest of the team. And we talk a lot about. Well, first thing I want to say is, I love this episode we've done today. We've been diving into kind of the technicalities of these rosters and how they're constructed and how these teams are going to fare when it comes to the playoffs. I'm interested to see how the views do for this kind of show compared to where we're just complaining about All-Star Weekend, because they did pretty well, right? Because recently everyone's been complaining about, the way the media covers the game, they just complain. I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, we're getting 10 million views for that. I don't know how many people are going to watch this, but I say that because a playoff series between the Warriors and the Lakers would be must-see TV. And if you were a script writer for the NBA and you could plan out how this season goes, you would want to see, maybe a Lakers Mavericks in the first round, maybe a Lakers Warriors in the second round or the conference finals, and then either the Lakers or the Warriors against the Boston Celtics in the finals. And I think that would do very well for the ratings that have not been doing so well lately. So we're gonna have to wait and see if they stick to the script like they did in the in-season tournament last year. So we're gonna have to wait and see. But do any of these trades, and now we've had a few games since the trades, you're in the kind of honeymoon period with these new players. Scott, are you believing in this Warriors team to be able to close out this season like this? I think to get the 5th seed, they need to go like 19-6 to avoid the play-in.
No,
are you buying the stock now for the remainder of the season and the postseason, or is this
I'm buying the stock for Golden State to get up in that 6 or 7 range for sure. I think just the momentum. I think they have enough to ride that out. You're talking about 2 more months of the year, not even a full 2 months. So I think they're very capable of doing it, for sure, from what I've seen thus far. And they're highly motivated to do it. And BJ made the point, like Steph Curry was saying, hey, this is it. So I believe each and every night they step into that arena, they know, okay, we got to go out here and win. So I expect to see Golden State to continue to ascend a little bit, but I do agree with BJ in terms of long-term success in the playoffs. There are other teams in this Western Conference that I don't see them beating in the 7-game series, aka OKC, Denver, a healthy Dallas. Those 3 for sure. And Houston, from a talent and athletic standpoint, is going to be a difficult out for anybody that plays against them. But one other point I was going to make when you talking about with the trade deadline, one trade we haven't talked about a lot, but I see paying dividends already, and it's very much an underrated trade, was Cleveland picking up the young man from
DeAndre Hunter.
DeAndre Hunter from Atlanta. He gives them a wing with size who can defend, capable of matching up with the Tatums or Browns on the perimeter from a defensive standpoint. He can shoot the basketball, has a good basketball IQ. And again, that makes their depth even that much better now because you have a legit starter on that wing, allows guys, they've been playing their bench all year. Guys like Ty Jerome.
Ty Jerome's been balling recently.
But yeah, he's been playing great. And he's just added even just that much more of a layer of confidence, I think, to this group. And the Cleveland Cavaliers are digging their heels into the ground and saying, oh, okay, we know about the Celtics and we know they're champions, but we believe we need that kind of attention and we can be right there in the end competing with the Celtics to represent the Eastern Conference. So that trade right there, to me, haven't been talked about a ton, but I really like it, and I like the dividends that I'm seeing early on that it's paying.
Well, we're going to see the Celtics and the Cavs go head-to-head on Friday night. So that's going to be a matchup to watch this week because that'll be a good test to see just how they can defend, because Jason Tatum absolutely torched DeAndre Hunter whenever he played him in Atlanta. So we're going to see. We're going to see. How about that? We're going to see. We're gonna see how they do. But we're in the final stretch of the season now. It's February's already almost finished. Playoffs around the corner. I'm excited for the rest of it. And that's nice to break down some of the teams around the league. Does anyone else catch your eye? Are you guys worried a little about Houston, who have been sliding down from the 2nd seed all the way down to 5th now?
I'm not overly worried about them yet. Again, they're still a younger basketball team. But I still see them as being very dangerous because they are athletic, they have depth, they play hard, extremely well coached, and they just, like a lot of teams do, hit a little bit of lull in the regular season. But I expect them to pick it back up. I don't see a free fall from this team. I see a team, again, like I said, it's going to be a very difficult out in the first round for anybody that matches up against them.
Yeah, I think Van Vliet's been out with an injury as well, so that's not helped.
Yeah.
But they beat the Timberwolves the other day. They beat the Phoenix Suns, and I don't know if we still consider the Suns a good team, but let's see if the Rockets can get it back together. The Western Conference is going to be very, very interesting to close out the year now because there's 8 spots and there's 9 teams that are really looking at it. They're really looking at it to make a run for it. And then over in the East, BJ, your Pistons won their last 6 games, 8-2 over their last 10. I know that you want to talk a little bit about your Detroit Pistons, so I'm gonna leave that one to you.
Yeah, well, you know what, you got to give these guys credit, and let's start at the top with Cade Cunningham, and Cade has been terrific. I think the coaches there are deserving, of Coach of the Year. Of what they've been able to do.
Yeah.
Okay. And you got to give the Pistons credit. I mean, the Pistons are in sixth place, I believe, currently right now.
Yep.
And they're just playing terrific. And Cade Cunningham has been He's been an all-star and he's been playing like an all-star. I mean, he had another like terrific game last night where I think 38 something.
Yeah,
I mean, he was
12,
just
12 assists and 7 rebounds.
yeah. I mean, those are big time numbers. So they have a star, and you have to give all those guys their that they've drafted over the years, and that's always hard. But they've hit on many of those players. Okay, they've hit on many of those players: Dern, Cunningham, Thompson,
So, yeah.
and they've hit on some of those players, and now they're paying dividends. So give those guys credit, and they are legit. And do I dare say now we expect them to be in the playoffs? I mean, think
Yeah,
about that.
the 5 games over 500.
I
Yeah,
expect
no.
them to be in the playoffs right now.
And that bottom half of the Eastern Conference is a mess. So
and
If the season were to end today and they ended in sixth, the Knicks in third, that would be the first round matchup. And this Piston team has beaten the Knicks twice this year in New York, I believe. And they're doing this too. No Jaden Ivey, who's one of the best athletes
right.
On the perimeter at the guard position in the league. And I see where he's now starting to he's out of the boot and starting to even rehab even more, so they can get him back. What a bonus to get him back. But Cade, as you mentioned, man, he has really continued to get better, rounded in the shape. And you talked about the drafting, and this is the tough part of the business. And again, as a GM, this is where you got to give a shout out to the former GM there, Troy Weaver, because the majority of this roster he put together. And all these draft picks that we were talking about, and we know that it takes time with these younger players to gain experience. And the biggest difference was the addition of the coach this year. JB Bickerstaff has done a terrific job. His energy is great. You can tell he wants to be there. The guys have bought into him. He's bought into the guys. And this is what happens when you have that and you start to get maximum effort and you start to get great results on the court.
absolutely. Shout out to Detroit. I'm kind of worried if they do make the playoffs and maybe even win a first round. What's going to happen to BJ? I'm kind of worried. I can't lie to you, brother. I can't lie.
Hey, Mo, they have to keep pace with the Lions now. Yeah, so there's a little pressure now. They got to get in and make some noise.
Man, it's all on the way up for the city of Detroit. So shout out to you guys. But that's another episode of the Hoop Genius podcast. Make sure you subscribe to the show, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast from. Scott, appreciate you joining us as you do every week. BJ will be back tomorrow with more. Should be a good week of basketball ahead. So let's keep it rolling, keep breaking down these games, and until next time, get buckets.